had always believed birthdays were supposed to feel warm, like proof that you mattered, like a pause button on life where people showed up because they wanted to, not because they had to. This birthday was different. It had to be. Turning 30 felt like a line drawn in the sand. I told myself this year would mark the end of old wounds, old silences, old disappointments. For once, I wanted my family in the same room, smiling, pretending, at least for one night, that we were normal. So I planned everything myself. The venue wasn't fancy, but it was elegant. Soft yellow lights, white curtains, a small stage for music. I ordered my favorite cake, the one with dark chocolate layers my mother used to bake for me when I was a child, before things changed, before secrets became the air we breathed. Invitations went out weeks in advance. My parents said they'd come. My siblings replied with casual thumbs-up emojis. My aunts and uncles confirmed, some sounding surprisingly excited. That should have been my first warning, but I ignored it. I wanted this to work too badly. On the day of the party, I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. I chose a simple outfit, nothing flashy. I didn't want attention. I just wanted peace. As I adjusted my necklace, I caught my reflection smiling, and for a moment I felt proud of myself. Look at you, I thought. You survived. You built a life. Tonight is yours. Guests started arriving just before sunset. Laughter filled the room. Music played softly. Someone hugged me from behind. It was my cousin. My mother arrived shortly after, perfectly dressed, her smile polished but distant. My father nodded at me like I was a colleague, not my child. Still, I told myself, this is fine. Then my phone vibrated. I ignored it at first. Birthdays come with notifications, messages, calls, random forwarded prayers. But it vibrated again and again. Finally, I slipped away from the crowd and checked the screen. Unknown number. Attached was a single video file. No text, no explanation. My heart tightened. I almost deleted it. Almost, but something about the timing, the silence, the anonymity made my fingers hesitate. I pressed play. The video was shaky, clearly recorded in secret. The voices were familiar, too familiar. I recognized my mother's voice first, calm, calculated, then my father, then my older sister. They were sitting together at a table I knew very well, our dining table, the one I grew up eating at. And then I heard my own name, spoken like a problem, like a burden, like a lie. My stomach dropped as the conversation unfolded, fragments at first, then full sentences, words that explained years of confusion, coldness, and quiet cruelty, a family discussion that was never meant for me to hear, a family secret that explained everything. My hands started shaking. The noise of the party faded into a distant echo. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a rope around it and pulled. Behind me, someone laughed loudly. Someone called my name, asking where I'd gone. I stared at my phone, at the paused video, and realized something with terrifying clarity. This birthday wasn't a celebration. It was a setup. And whatever my family thought they had buried, it had just risen right in the middle of my party. I took a deep breath. Then I turned toward the hall where everyone was waiting, unaware that my entire life had just cracked open. And that's when I made the decision that would change everything. What exactly was in that video, and why did someone choose my birthday to expose it? In part 2, I confront the first truth and realize my family has been lying to me for longer than I ever imagined. I replayed the video again, slower this time, forcing myself not to look away. My mother's voice came through clearly now. "She's starting to ask questions," she said. "We need to be careful. If she finds out the truth, everything we built could fall apart." My father sighed, the sound heavy with irritation. "She doesn't need to know. It's better this way. It always has been." Then my sister laughed, not nervously, not awkwardly, amused. "She should be grateful," my sister said, "after everything we did for her." My fingers went numb. Grateful? The video continued, jumping to another moment. Different day, same table. This time, documents were spread out. I caught a glimpse of my name on one page, my date of birth on another. Then the sentence that shattered me. She was never supposed to be treated like one of us forever. I felt dizzy. Suddenly, memories I'd buried started clawing their way back to the surface. Moments that never made sense before. Why my siblings got expensive gifts while I got practical ones. Why my opinions were always dismissed. Why arguments somehow always ended with me apologizing. Why my achievements were acknowledged politely but never celebrated. I had told myself I was sensitive, that I imagined the distance, but I hadn't imagined it. I was different, because they had decided I would be. The video ended with my father saying something that made my knees weaken. "Just make sure she never sees the papers, especially not after 30. If she finds out now, she'll question everything." 30. Today. My birthday. My vision blurred as tears filled my eyes. Not dramatic sobs, but quiet, stunned disbelief. I leaned against the wall, feeling like the floor might disappear beneath me. Behind me, the party continued. Music, clinking glasses, laughter. My family was celebrating me, while knowing I was the only one in the room who didn't know the truth about my own life. I wiped my face quickly when footsteps approached. My cousin peeked around the corner. "Hey," she smiled. "Everyone's asking where you are. Your mom wants to do the cake soon." My mom, the woman whose voice had just discussed my existence like a liability. "I'll be there in a minute," I said, surprised my voice didn't crack. She nodded and walked away. I looked at my phone again. The anonymous number was still there. No messages, no missed calls, just the video. Someone in my family, or close to them, had decided I deserved to know, and they chose this moment. A wave of anger followed the shock. Not explosive rage, but something colder, sharper. They had planned this party knowing I was still in the dark, smiling at me, hugging me, pretending. I straightened my back. If they wanted a performance, I could give them one. I walked back into the hall. Conversations paused as people noticed my expression. My mother looked relieved when she saw me, until our eyes met. Something flickered in her gaze. Fear. I climbed onto the small stage beside the microphone, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. "I just want to say something before we cut the cake," I said, forcing a smile. The room quieted instantly. My family froze. They didn't know yet, but they were about to. What did I say into that microphone, and how did my family react when they realized their secret was no longer safe? In part 3, the birthday turns into a public reckoning no one was prepared for.
The microphone felt heavier than it should have in my hand. Dozens of faces stared back at me. Friends, relatives, people who thought they knew our family story. My mother stood near the front, her smile frozen. My father crossed his arms. My sister avoided my eyes. I took a slow breath. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "I really didn't think this many people would show up tonight." A few people laughed softly. "I planned this party because I wanted to celebrate a new chapter in my life. 30 felt important, like a milestone." I paused, letting the silence stretch. "But sometimes milestones don't bring gifts," I continued. "Sometimes they bring answers." My mother's eyes widened slightly. "I learned something today," I said. "Something about myself, about my family." The room grew still. I could feel it, people leaning in, sensing the shift. "I learned that the reason I always felt like I didn't quite belong wasn't in my head." A murmur rippled through the crowd. My sister finally looked up, her jaw tightening. "I won't go into details," I said carefully, though every part of me wanted to scream them. "But I will say this. It hurts to discover that the people who were supposed to protect you were actually protecting a lie." My father took a step forward. "This isn't the time," he said sharply. I turned toward him. "Then when is the time? After another decade of pretending?" Gasps echoed. Someone near the back whispered my name. I felt my hands shaking, but I kept going. I was raised to believe honesty mattered, that family meant loyalty, that love wasn't conditional. I looked directly at my mother now. But I'm realizing those were rules meant only for me. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "I won't ruin the evening for everyone else," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "So I'm making a decision." I lowered the microphone slightly. "I'm canceling my birthday party." The room erupted. "What? Is this a joke? Are you okay?" I handed the microphone to the stunned host and stepped off the stage. My mother rushed toward me, grabbing my arm tightly. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Have you lost your mind?" I pulled my arm free. "Don't touch me." Her face flushed. "We can talk about this at home." "There is no home right now," I replied. My sister stepped in, voice low and threatening. "You're embarrassing us." I laughed short, bitter. "No, you did that yourselves." My father leaned close. "You don't know the whole story." I met his eyes. "Then you should have told me before someone else did." That stopped him. Guests began quietly gathering their things. Some hugged me on the way out, confused but sympathetic. Others avoided eye contact entirely. Within minutes, the room was nearly empty. The decorations looked ridiculous now. Balloons sagging, cake untouched, music still playing softly like it hadn't gotten a message. When the last guest left, my mother finally broke down. "You had no right," she said, tears streaking her makeup. "After everything we sacrificed." I stared at her. "What you sacrificed was the truth." I grabbed my bag and walked toward the exit. Behind me, my sister called out, You think you're the victim here? You have no idea what you're about to destroy. I stopped at the door, but didn't turn around. Good, because whatever it is, it shouldn't exist if it can't survive honesty. I stepped outside into the cool night air, my heart pounding. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking away quietly, and that terrified them. Where did I go after canceling my own birthday, and what proof did I uncover that made the family secret even darker? In part 4, the truth follows me, and it refuses to stay hidden.
I didn't go home that night. I drove without direction, the city lights blurring through my tears. My phone buzzed nonstop, missed calls, messages I refused to read. I needed silence, space, somewhere my thoughts wouldn't echo back at me in my parents' voices. I ended up at my childhood apartment building. I don't know why. Maybe muscle memory? Maybe I needed to stand in the place where everything started to see if it felt different now. The building looked smaller than I remembered, older, like it had been waiting for me to catch up to it. I used my old key. They had never changed the lock. Inside, the apartment was dark and untouched, like a shrine to a version of our family that never truly existed. Dust floated in the air as I flipped on the light. That's when I saw it. A small metal box on the top shelf of the hallway closet. I remembered it from years ago. My mother had once slapped my hand away when I reached for it, saying it held important papers. I dragged a chair over and pulled it down. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were documents neatly arranged, birth records, legal forms, old letters. I didn't need long to understand what I was looking at. I wasn't adopted the way people imagined, chosen, welcomed. I was transferred, signed over. There were papers detailing an agreement between my biological mother and my parents, medical records explaining complications during my birth, a handwritten note from my mother, the woman who raised me, stating conditions. She will be raised as ours, but boundaries must be maintained. Boundaries. I sank onto the floor, papers spilling around me. Suddenly, the video made sense. The distance, the control, the way love always felt measured. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a solution. My phone buzzed again. This time, a message from an unknown number. Unknown. You found it, didn't you? My breath caught. Me. Who are you? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then a reply. Unknown. Someone who got tired of watching you be lied to. I asked a dozen questions at once, but only one response came back. Unknown. Ask your aunt about the night you were born. She's the only one who wanted to tell you. My aunt. The one who always hugged me a second longer than necessary. The one who cried at my graduations when my parents barely clapped. I packed the documents carefully and left the apartment before my courage could fade. I drove straight to her house. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and stepped aside without a word. We sat at her kitchen table, the same way families do when something irreversible is about to be said. I always wondered when this day would come, she whispered after I showed her the papers. My chest tightened. So, it's true? She nodded, tears pooling. They promised it was temporary, that once things settled, they'd tell you. Things never settle when lies are involved, I said. She reached for my hand. You were loved, just not the way you deserved. The words hurt worse than anger. As I stood to leave, she stopped me. There's one more thing, she said quietly. Your birthday wasn't just bad timing. My heart dropped. What do you mean? She swallowed hard. They chose today because tonight was supposed to be the night they finalized something without you. What were they planning behind my back, and how far were they willing to go to keep control over my life? In part 5, I confront the plan that made my birthday a deadline. My aunt's words followed me all the way back to my car. A deadline. I sat behind the steering wheel, staring at nothing, trying to understand how my birthday, something meant to celebrate my existence, had almost been used to erase it. I went home that night, but sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw papers sliding across a table, signatures, smiles that weren't meant for me. By morning, my phone was silent. That scared me more than the missed calls. I decided to stop guessing. I drove straight to my parents' house. My mother opened the door looking exhausted, like she hadn't slept either. For a moment, she looked like the woman I used to run to as a child. Then her expression hardened. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I'm exactly where I should be," and I walked past her. My father and sister were already seated at the dining table. The same table from the video. I placed the documents in the center. "You were going to sign something last night," I said. "What was it?" Silence. Then my sister scoffed. "You really don't know when to stop." My father finally spoke. It was a formality. "A formality that required my signature?" I asked. My mother looked away. That was answer enough. I leaned forward. "Tell me." My father exhaled. "There was a trust set up when you were a child, medical contingencies, financial arrangements. It was never meant to involve you directly." "Because I was never meant to have control," I said. My mother's voice cracked. "We did what was best." "For who?" I snapped. My sister stood up. "You were born into chaos. They saved you." "No," I said calmly. "They managed me." The truth came out piece by piece. There was money tied to my existence, conditions attached to my age, decisions that could be finalized once I turned 30, unless I objected. They hadn't expected me to object. My birthday party wasn't just a celebration. It was a distraction. I laughed softly, the sound foreign in my own ears. "You smiled at me while planning to decide my future without me?" My mother reached out. "We're still your family." I stepped back. Family doesn't need permission slips to tell the truth. My father's voice turned cold. "If you walk away from this, you lose everything." I met his stare. I already lost the lie. That was the most expensive thing you owned. I gathered the documents and turned toward the door. My sister followed me into the hallway. "You think you're free now?" she whispered. "People like you don't just walk away from arrangements like this." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time without hoping she'd love me. "Watch me," I said. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, dangerous. My phone buzzed again. "Unknown. They're going to try to stop you." I typed back with steady hands. "Me. I'm done being managed." The reply came instantly. "Unknown. Then you need to be ready, because once you break the agreement, they'll reveal the part they never told you." My chest tightened. Me. What part? 3 dots appeared, paused, then vanished. I stood there realizing something terrifying. I didn't know the whole truth yet, and whatever they were hiding next, it was big enough to scare even them. What final truth were they hiding, and why did breaking free put me in danger of losing more than just my family? In part 6, the last secret surfaces, and it changes how I see myself forever. I didn't hear from them for 2 days. No calls, no messages, no threats. That silence felt calculated, like the pause before a storm. On the 3rd morning, my aunt called. "You need to come see me," she said. Her voice was urgent, lower than usual, "and you need to come alone." When I arrived, she didn't invite me in right away. She locked the door behind me, then handed me an envelope I'd never seen before. "I was told to destroy this years ago," she said, "but I couldn't." Inside were copies of reports, letters from lawyers, medical assessments. One document in particular made my hands go cold. It wasn't about money, it was about me. According to the papers, my biological mother hadn't just given me up because she couldn't raise me. She'd been pressured, legally cornered, offered protection in exchange for silence. Protection from whom? From my father. Not the man who raised me, the man whose name was on my original birth record. I felt like the room tilted. "They were afraid," my aunt said softly, "not of losing you, of what would happen if you ever found out who you were and what you were entitled to." I shook my head. "This doesn't make sense." "It does," she said. "You weren't a mistake. You were evidence." Everything clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The agreements, the secrecy, the emotional distance disguised as discipline, the need to control my decisions, my finances, my independence. If I stayed compliant, the past stayed buried. If I questioned things, everything unraveled. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't the unknown number. It was my father. "Dad, we need to talk. Now." I didn't respond. Minutes later, another message. "Dad, you're misunderstanding things." I stared at the words, then felt something unfamiliar rise in my chest. Not fear, power. I finally understood why my birthday mattered so much, why 30 was the line, why they needed documents signed, futures sealed. After this age, I couldn't be silenced the same way. After this age, the truth could legally surface. I stood up, heart racing.
not from panic, but from resolve. "They don't own me," I said out loud. My aunt nodded. "They never did." That night, I wrote a single email. I attached copies of every document, and I sent it to a lawyer whose name had appeared repeatedly in the files, someone my parents had clearly tried to avoid. Then I blocked my family's numbers, all of them. For the first time in my life, I slept without guilt. But freedom comes with consequences. At dawn, a knock echoed through my apartment. Not urgent, not aggressive, controlled. I opened the door to find my sister standing there, eyes red, expression unreadable. "You have no idea what you've started," she said. I crossed my arms. "I do." She hesitated. "If this goes public, it won't just destroy them." I met her gaze. "Good. Lies don't deserve survivors." She swallowed hard. "You really think you'll win?" she asked. I smiled faintly. "No. I think I'll finally be real." And for the first time, she looked afraid, not of losing control, but of losing the version of me they could manipulate. What happened when the truth became official? And how did canceling my birthday end up giving me the life they never wanted me to have? In the final part, everything comes full circle. The lawyer called 3 days later. His voice was calm, professional, but underneath it, I sensed surprise. "You have more leverage than you realize," he said, "and more protection than they expected." That sentence felt like air returning to my lungs. Within weeks, everything moved faster than I thought possible. Documents were reviewed, agreements were challenged, long-buried timelines were reconstructed with precision my family had never counted on. They had built their world on silence. Silence doesn't hold up under light. My parents didn't fight publicly at first. They tried privately, messages through relatives, emotional appeals through my aunt, even an apology letter written in my mother's careful handwriting. "We did what we thought was right. We were scared. We still love you." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because for the first time, I was choosing myself over explanations. The truth came out slowly, then all at once, not in headlines or dramatic courtrooms, but in records, confirmations, and quiet acknowledgments that could no longer be denied. The trust was dissolved, the conditions were voided, and the control they'd held over my life, piece by piece, disappeared. I moved to a new place, a smaller apartment with big windows. I bought furniture I liked without asking anyone's opinion. I filled the fridge with food I actually wanted. It felt strange at first, this freedom without permission. One evening, my aunt visited. She brought a small cake with 2 candles shaped like a 3 and a 0. "I know it's late," she said softly, "but you deserved a birthday." We sat on the floor, laughing like kids, eating cake straight from the box. I made a wish before blowing out the candles. Not for happiness, for truth. Months later, I ran into my sister by chance. She looked older, tired. "They don't talk about you anymore," she said quietly. I nodded. "That's okay. They lost everything trying to keep you." I met her eyes. "They lost it trying to own me." She didn't argue. Sometimes I still think about that party, the decorations, the cake that never got cut, the moment my life split into before and after. Canceling my birthday felt like an ending, but it wasn't. It was a beginning disguised as loss. I learned that family isn't defined by blood or signatures. It's defined by honesty, respect, and the courage to let someone be fully themselves, even if it scares you. They tried to make my 30th birthday a deadline. Instead, it became my release date. And the secret they worked so hard to hide, it didn't destroy me. It finally set me free.